Hello, welcome back to Your Space. Unfortunately, today we lost a true hero of mine. Michael Collins passed away from cancer at the age of 90. I have a lot of Michael Collins, a couple of things around here of Michael Collins, and he was one of my favorite astronauts. He flew around Apollo 11 around the moon, and while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were down hopping around for the first time ever for humans landing on the moon, he was the one up on the capsule. So I just wanted to do a little, I guess you would say, tribute video for him. I hope you guys enjoy. I do have old Michael Collins book. I believe it's from 1988, I believe it's called, Liftoff. Very good book. I think I read it as a teenager. I didn't read much books as a teenager, but you gave me anything that had to do with space exploration and astronauts. I definitely read. So I don't know if you can even find this book anymore or what, but I would definitely say to read it in dedication of him. He was truly an American hero, and I hope that you enjoy this video. Thank you. Michael Collins, born October 31st, 1930 in Rome, Italy, due to his army father traveling around military bases. Flew in Apollo 11 around the moon, while his crewmates Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon for all mankind. He was a test pilot and a major general in the United States Air Force. He tried to go in for the second time when they were picking for Gemini, because they already had picked the original 7 Mercury astronauts, and unfortunately they didn't pick him. So he decided, I'm going to apply one more time just to see if he can get in. And in 1963, they picked him to be part of Gemini for the NASA Apollo program, or Gemini program also. He flew twice in space. His first space flight was on Gemini 10, where him and John Young, as command pilot, performed orbital rendezvous with 2 different Agena spacecraft to practice docking and undocking, and also did 2 EVAs, extravehicular activities, known as spacewalks. Also, wanted to show you guys, this is an original Life magazine from August 5th, 1966. This is the Gemini when he was flying with John Young. This is the Agena 10 spacecraft. I put a little mark here so that way I know where it's at. But that's the cover of it. I'm trying to be extra careful here. Make sure not to rip it. But it's the historic hookup of the highest ride, and the reason why it was the highest ride is at that point it was the highest that they ever went up into space, 476 miles up. Then they undocked and then docked with the Agena 8, and they also were the first ones that threw their garbage out into space. This is some inventory and hardware that they had. And one day, tell me in the comments down below if you want me to go through some of these old time magazines. I have a few here and a few up there. I kind of have them laying around. But Collins was the 4th American, or 4th person actually, to ever do an EVA, which is go outside the spacecraft and spacewalk. So yeah, that's pretty cool. When he was in the Air Force, he flew F-86 test planes, and he also flew and tested even more modern aircraft at Edwards Air Force Base. He retired in 1970 and became a assistant secretary for the state for public affairs. But then he also became the director of the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., which is pretty cool. I've been there a couple times. Being the fact that he was in the military, he moved around a lot. You know, when you grow up in the military, you move from base to base. So he lived in Oklahoma, Baltimore, Maryland, New York, Columbus, Ohio, Puerto Rico. He lived quite a bit. Actually, his first flight was on a plane in Puerto Rico, and he just loved it. He loved living there. He talked about it regularly. And I mean, who wouldn't? You know, flying over a tropical island is definitely better than the plains or the cold over in Ohio. So that I found that really interesting. That was from the book also I got. He joined the Air Force with his love of technical aeronautic technologies that were being developed at the time. It was really booming, and questioned where his path might go if he were to keep staying with the Air Force. So, as many other men and women, military personnel and branches of government were also joining, they were trying to figure out where was this technology going of avionics or aviation. He then met his future wife, Patricia Mary Finnegan, an English major in Boston, Massachusetts. She also was a social worker working with single mothers and mothers with slight mental disorders on the base, and soon were married in 1957 and had 2 girls and a boy. Michael Collins, the first ever to leave communication from Earth in space, in outer space. What pretty much happened, actually I have a little model here I can kind of play around with, is so this was the command module. This is the LEM, the lunar module. So as they would go around the moon, they separated. Buzz and Neil would go down to the moon, and he would stay here in the command module. Now, as the module were to go to the back side of the moon, they would lose signal. So they didn't know what would happen to him. Any problems on the back side of the moon, on the dark side of the moon, he could go off into space and never to be heard from again. So it was pretty dangerous there. Asked him, what was it like to be on the other side of the moon, or while Neil and Buzz were dancing around on the moon for all mankind, what would he do? And he pretty much said, well, I have a good window, so he'll take a peek at the moon, and he would bring along a couple of good books. So he brought quite a bit of books. He never complained and never was jealous about not being the one. He was literally 1/3 of the mission that was all about mankind and landing on the moon. So he would never complain about that, especially Air Force. So I didn't know if you knew this. Michael Collins designed the Apollo 11 patch that I have here. He was an artist, and he drew it, and pretty much he copied the eagle from a National Geographic picture, and he copied it. He drew it by hand because he was an artist, but so the eagle represents the LEM, which is the Lunar Excursion Module. The olive branch signified that we go to the moon in peace. And obviously the moon is where they were going to be landing. Now there's no name on the patch, and they did ask Michael Collins, why did you design the patch with no name on it? And what his words is, and I quote, "Going to the moon is larger than us as individuals. The Earth in the back represents everyone, because the mission is bigger than any nations or politics. So therefore, no name is landing on the moon. The moon is just the human race." So the only word is Apollo, That way the whole world will read it and claim the moon as their own. So, Michael Collins, sad to see you leave. Godspeed. This is your space.